Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. Welcome to our 62nd installment in the Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Vayeshev. Vayeshev talks about the story of Yosef, Yosef being sold, going down to Egypt, sold by his brothers, and the story of Yehuda and Tamar. So the Torah says, interesting, chapter 38, the Torah says is at that time that Yehuda went down from his brothers, turned away towards an Adulamite man whose name was Chira. There Judah saw the daughter of a prominent merchant whose name was Shua. He married her and consorted with her. She conceived and bore a son, called his name Er. She conceived him again, bore a son. She called his name Oinain. Yet again she bore a son, called his name Shelah. And it was in Chaziv when she bore him. So here, after the story of Yosef and the brothers, and they don't kill him, but they sell him to Egypt, and Yaakov rents his garments after they put his coat in blood, etc. So Yaakov is lamenting the fact that his son has died. And then it tells the story, then it starts to tell the story of Yehuda and Tamar. So the question is, Rashi says that there's a connection, right? There's obviously a connection between verses, between stories. You know, there's usually a connection, and Rashi says, what's the connection between the story of selling Yosef and this parsha over here, which is talking about Yehuda and Tamar, which we'll get to Yehuda and Tamar, but about him having kids, etc. Rashi says it's in order to teach you that Yehuda loses his greatness over here because of the difficulty, the suffering that his father went through. He wanted to sell him, they wanted to kill him, and it's really a wonder, as says Mori Rebbe Rav Agon Moshe Stern Moshlita. He brings down in Chochmah Vadaz that the brothers want to send him into the pit, and they want to kill him. And he had the ability to save him, and he saves them. He saves Yosef by selling him, at least so he can be alive. Nonetheless, it still caused suffering, tremendous amount of suffering for Yaakov. But here it's, as Marebi asks, he says, what's so bad? Why does he lose his stature, so to speak? His brothers wanted to kill him. He wanted to sell him. Right? So he saved him. He didn't kill him. Yosef gets saved, right? Sorry, spoiler alert. Yosef doesn't die. He doesn't die. He gets sold. Right? They sell him. So why does Yehuda get knocked out? At least they made some sort of compromise, but he shouldn't have been knocked out. The Rebbe here says that the brothers decided that he was liable for a death penalty. Right? And God agreed also that this was what was supposed to happen. And again, we have to understand who the players are here. You got the sons of Yosef, they're all righteous, right? The question is, how could they've done what they did? Seems that Joseph definitely deserved to be punished over here, maybe not in such a cruel manner, but nonetheless, they made the judgment, and that's what happened. So the thing is, what did Yaakov do? What did Yehuda do? Yehuda saves him. He leaves him alive. He gets sold. But look at all the suffering that it causes his father. Maybe he could have acquiesced to his brothers, told them to push it off, push off the judgment, or, come up with some sort of other advice, to save him so as not to cause his father to suffer, right? Because Yosef is the youngest, right? Or actually, Binyamin is really the youngest. He's the second youngest, but he was close. He was the closest to his father than the other brothers. Nonetheless, He could have pushed him off. Right? If Yehuda, I gotta remember who's here. If Yehuda could have pushed him off, so his father wouldn't have suffered. So he's taking a task. He's taking a task, even though he saved him. He's taking the task for the sole reason that his father suffers, seemingly unnecessarily, that he suffers. Now, there's another way possibly to look at this, because after seeing that he's saved by a miracle, right? They threw him into the pit. It says over there that it's a pit, ein bo mayim, right? The borsh, ein bo mayim. It's a pit without water. So Rashi says, brings from the Talmud, why does it say a pit without any water? So what was there? Okay, water wasn't there, scorpions and snakes were. So they wanted to see, how great Yosef was. If he survives, okay, so they won't kill him. They're not doing it with their own hands, right? They place him in the pit. If he dies, he dies. So if he's so great, he's not going to die. If not, he'll get what he deserves. So once Yosef survives and he doesn't die, he understood that God didn't want him to die. So he made a pshara, he made a compromise that, okay, we're not going to kill him. We see he doesn't deserve to die. So instead of pushing him off altogether, he made a compromise. Okay, we'll sell him. Right, we'll get something for him. We'll sell him. Be out of our hair. And that'll be the end of it. Now you see over here, as my Rebbe points out, Yehuda didn't want to accept what they said. So according to him, why did he make a compromise? If he didn't accept that Yosef was liable for the death penalty, then why sell him? Why make any compromise at all? He doesn't deserve to make a compromise. If he doesn't believe it, stop it. Right? He should have exempted him altogether. Because if he was going to save him, bring him back to his father. So his father's not going to suffer. So Talmud says, this is how bad it is. The Talmud says, anyone who praises Yehuda, anyone who blesses him, is disgusting in God's eyes. That's pretty severe. Right? It's one thing, you say, okay, he could have made a compromise, could have saved him, but to say anyone who blesses him is disgusting, is considered disgusting in God's eyes. What Yehuda should have done is he should have saved him 100%. Not only shouldn't be killed, he shouldn't have been sold either. Because if a person's really going on the right path, he has heavenly help, tremendous amount of heavenly help, and he shouldn't give in. He shouldn't have to give in if he's on the right path. So Rebbe here says, this is a tremendous thing to learn. That we see that if you make a compromise, and it's a bad compromise, you put yourself in tremendous danger. It's a tremendous sin to compromise. It's a tremendous thing over here. So, there's a major issue, right? And this is what I want to focus on. So my Rebbe here points out, Yehuda could have saved him. What happened? Yehuda doesn't. He just saves him from being killed. He sees that, obviously, God didn't want him to die. So, he makes a compromise. The Torah says, or the Talmud brings out, what a great compromise. Why did he save them all together? If you bless Yehuda, this is where kingship comes from. Right? The whole story with Yehuda and Tamar. Kingship comes through Yehuda. Pretty unbelievable. Even so, Talmud says over there, if you bless Yehuda, you're considered disgusting in God's eyes. So my Rebbe here says that we learn out that making a compromise is a bad thing. Not only is it bad, it's like you're cursed. So my Rebbe here says, and we're going to go into more detail. He had the ability to save him. What did he do? He pushed off the death sentence. That's not bad. Right? We'll cut you to some slack. That's not so bad. But he didn't save him. He sold him, or they sold him, with his advice. But then they have to report back to the father. So they kill this animal, drip his coat of many colors in it. Says, Dad, you recognize this? So, oh, my son's been ripped to shreds. He's not consoled. For 22 years, he has not been consoled. Right? We'll see in the next coming Parshas what happens. Right? With the brothers. When they come down next week's Parsha. When they come down looking for food because there's a famine. Yosef is the king. The second in command. Sorry, is viceroy, second in command. The Pharaoh interprets the dreams. So, when they go down there, the Medrash says they're looking for Yosef. And when they come in front of Yosef, they can imagine that's Yosef because of the way he spoke to them. But that's for next week. So there's an important fundamental principle. And that is, and this goes against, anything democratic, certainly. So, if you don't want to hear any fanaticism, better turn it off now. Right? We're going to go against democracy. Because democracy says, compromise. Right? You can disagree, but you should make a compromise. Question is when. According to this, you shouldn't make a compromise. Why in the world should you compromise? Torah is not something to be compromised on. We believe it's the real deal. We believe God spoke to Moshe. Moshe passed it down. It doesn't change. And it hasn't changed. Right? For the last 3,000 years. Torah has kept the Jewish people together. You want to change? You want to make, you want to turn it into a pretzel? You want to make it into something that's make-believe? I feel like doing it, fine. If I don't feel like doing it, can't change it. And even if you want to change it, let's say you could. What's the end result? Does it work or doesn't work? Doesn't work. Right? We've seen that. Doesn't work. You say, what about family? What about friends? What about... So I'll say, what about Torah? What comes first? So people will make the mistake, and secular Jews say this all the time. They'll say, family is more important than anything else. Well, the Torah doesn't say that. The Torah does not say that. The Torah says, I, God, am more important than anything else. If I'm man-made, okay, then you can do what you want. Then you can compromise. But if God gives you a book, which he manufactured himself, and he says, this is the way you're going to become close to me. You think, can I compromise? No. If we're put in certain situations, and there are many cases like this, whether it comes to the laws of Shabbos, laws of making blessings, other things, if I put myself in a situation, not a good situation, then the question is how I deal with it. We're not interested in putting ourselves in bad situations. If I ate something, I forgot to make a blessing. Or I made a blessing on the wrong thing. Or I had the wrong intention. What do? How do I fix it up? Can I fix it up? Certain things on Shabbos. I did this by mistake. Right? I was leaning up against the wall. Forgot there was a light switch. Knocked over the, I banged into the wall. Wasn't paying attention. Light switch went on or went off. Am I allowed to now, if it went on, can I get benefit from it? I certainly can't, if I turned it off, I certainly can't turn it back on. Right? But if I made a mistake, what do? So there are many situations a person can be found. If we make mistakes, which we do. So in those situations, certain halachas apply. Right? Certain laws will apply or they won't apply. There may be liability. There may be, consequences. Or there may not be. Depends why the person did it, how they did it, what their intention was, where they were holding at the time. There are a lot of different things. But the main thing is, don't put yourself in such a situation. Because then you have to rely on leniencies. Now, leniencies are there if need be. If it's something rabbinical, let's say, for instance, person forgot to make a blessing, or let's say they made a blessing, and they didn't do it the optimal way. They fulfilled their obligation. They say, I want to fix it up and make another blessing. Right? That you can't do because it's a blessing in vain. Right? You can't take God's name in vain. You can't just make blessings whenever you want. At the same time, let's say they were eating something and they didn't know if they made a blessing or not. If they make a blessing, then it might be a blessing in vain. So there's a Talmudic principle, Safek brachos lahakil. Right? If I have a doubt whether I made a blessing, we're lenient. So in this case, I don't make a blessing. I can rely on that leniency. I'm not sure. If I do make a blessing, could be a blessing in vain, could be I already made it. And if I don't make the blessing, right, I'm not sure if I made it. Right, you want to get your way out of the problem altogether. If you're eating something, eat of the same category which you never had in mind for. For instance, you're eating a peach. Right, you make a break for your eights. Right, fruit of the tree. But you never had in mind to eat an apple. After you eat the peach, the apple wasn't in front of you, never have it in mind, and now you want to eat the apple. Now, let's say you didn't remember if you made a blessing. We'll make it easy. You forgot to make a blessing. You weren't sure. You weren't sure if you made a blessing on it or not. So what do? So to get out of the problem altogether, if you want to get out of the problem, eat an apple. I never had intention for an apple. I mean, if you didn't have intention, then this works. If I didn't have intention to eat an apple, make a blessing on the apple, have in mind to cover the peach. Then you make an after blessing when you're done and you're fine. If you don't want to eat anything, or you don't have anything in the same category, you're stuck. Stuck over here means I can't make a new blessing because I'm not sure. So I can rely on the leniency. Now I'll ask you, even if you're allowed to rely on the leniency, okay, you're stuck, you don't have a choice. Is that where we want to be? No. Is that where I should strive to be? No. If I'm in that situation, the question is, what do I do? Not that I'm relying on it, because I want to rely on it. I'll give you another example. The other example is a woman who's married has an obligation to cover her hair. Now, when we say to cover her hair, it means all her hair. None of it should show. Doesn't matter if she covers it with a wig, if she covers it with, a beret, a scarf, whatever it is. She's allowed to cover her hair. Fine. Now, there's a lenient opinion that if a woman left a tefach uncovered, a tefach is a hand breadth, right? See my hand? My fist, right? A hand breadth. This amount. So, see, bald spot here, right? So she left part of her hair uncovered. Let's say she wore a baseball cap. Covered the rest of it, but left up here uncovered. The lenient opinion says if it was left uncovered, right, that amount, you can rely on it. The halacha is cover it all up. Torah obligation, cover it all up. So some people will say, since I have this leniency, and they're lazy, they'll let some of their hair be uncovered. Right? You wear a baseball cap, it's going to be uncovered, unless you're wearing something underneath it. So why do people do this? So my language, they're lazy. Well, isn't it better they do that than do nothing? So let me ask you. Right, you'll see in some synagogues, in the women's section they have a doily. Right, what's a doily? It's a transparent, it's a transparent thing, right, that a woman puts on her head. Right, silver, got sort of holes in it. Oh, not silver, whatever. It's like mesh. So in some places, in the women's section, or whatever, or even not a women's section, let's say it's even mixed seating, God forbid. But even in such a case, woman will cover the hair with that. So let me ask you, that doesn't even cover anything, because you can see the hair. We're not even talking about a tefach hair, a hand's breadth. The whole head is uncovered. So if you put a stupid doily on your head, have you just done anything? No. But people will say, but it's the thought. As I clutch my heart. It's the thought that counts. Is it right or is it not right? We don't care what your heart says. God doesn't care what's in your heart. He cares what you do. Because you can think about a million things and never do anything. So it doesn't matter what you think. What did I do? I covered my head with a doily. Is the hair covered? No. Do I get the mitzvah of it? No. You didn't do it. I'll give you another example. You say, well, it's the old college try. No, it's not. You didn't do it. I know of a certain synagogue that has a mechitza, an Orthodox synagogue. It's got a mechitza, a separation between men and women. And the mechitza goes around, not as high, I don't think it's as high as it should be either, but it's a different issue. But it is a separation. There's only one problem with this mechitza. You're going to think, what could be the problem? It's a separation that goes around. You're right. But most mechitzas, if you've ever seen them, they're usually made of wood and they crisscross. Right there, they have, like these slants that go crisscross. So you can't really see through. They're like lattice work. So this particular mechitza is made out of, come on, you ready? Are you ready? What could it be made of that I'm going to make fun of? Okay, I'll tell you. It's made out of plexiglass. Ha ha. You know what plexiglass is? Go to a hockey rink. Now, the whole purpose of having a mechitza is so you don't see women. It's a separation. We learned it out from the Beis Hamikdash, from the temple itself. Men were on the bottom, women were on the balcony up top. Men couldn't see the women. That's the whole point. So I ask you, well, isn't it the thought that counts? I felt like checking someone into the boards there. It's a joke. Want to have a mechitza made out of plexiglass? Then why put up a mechitza? It doesn't do anything. It's not just a separation. Separation is one aspect of it. But if you can see the other side, what's the whole point? So again, you'll say, okay, you're a fanatic. You're this right-wing nut. Okay, you can call me all kinds of names you want. That's fine. Does that fulfill the obligation or not? Right? We're not interested. We're not interested what's in my heart. What my thought is. Does it work? Does it fit halachic criteria? Yes or no? I know that. Answer is no. So then you'll say, Rabbi, if they're an Orthodox synagogue, why do they do it? Thank you very much. I don't answer questions like that. Why do some women cover a quarter of their hair? It's the thought that counts. My answer, if you're going to do it, do it. If you're not going to do it, don't do it. But don't make something half-baked that goes against what you're trying to do. I'm going to make a mechitza. We're an Orthodox synagogue. We want to have a separation between men and women. The only thing is, you can see straight through. Does that make any logical sense? It should. Logical sense. That doesn't make, it doesn't fulfill any obligation. You're going to say, it's a thought that counts. I don't care what the thought is. Either you want to hold according to Jewish law, according to halacha, or you don't. And if you don't, just say, I don't. I pick and choose. My kids probably won't be Jewish. Leave your Hebrew name at the door. It's game over. So you're going to say, okay, we've heard you rant and rave about this a number of times. What's the connection here? Yehuda makes a compromise. This compromise causes his father unbelievable anguish. So he said, the lesser of two evils. We're not going to kill Yosef. I'll get him agreed not to kill him, but we'll sell him. Now, if you were to ask Yaakov at that point, was that a good idea? Because he didn't know for 22 years. His beloved favorite son is separate from him. He thinks he's dead. Yehuda comes along and says, I got a great idea. I'll solve the problem. How am I going to solve it? I'll save Yosef, we'll sell him. What about all the anguish? What about all the anguish you just caused your father for 22 years? He's punished. He's taken down from his greatness. From it. He compromised. Torah is not about compromise. People will say, which I mentioned before, that whatever happens, family is family. And sometimes you have to compromise for family. You don't want to lose family. Right? In theory, that's true. Until they intermarry. And then, they're not family anymore. And if it's a male intermarries, the kids aren't Jewish. So they're no relation to you anymore. Yes. This is pretty severe. So in that realm, we'll take it one step further. One of the 10 commandments is, you shall keep Shabbos. Now, keeping Shabbos, according to the Torah, doesn't explain how to do it. But the Torah says, if you don't do it right, you get the death penalty. And not only that, you get spiritually cut off. See, so you get the death penalty even though we don't do it today. You would get the death penalty if you were warned and everything else. And then you get spiritually cut off. So you don't get anything in the next world either. Now, also, one of the 10 commandments is, honor your parents. So, later, there's a juxtaposition of the verses. Right? Another place, it says keep Shabbat, and it says honor your parents. What's the connection? Why do you have the verses juxtaposed, as the Talmud asks? Talmud answers, if your parents come and tell you, I want you to desecrate Shabbos, you don't have an obligation to listen to them. You have to honor and fear your parents, right? Different ways to honor them. Different ways to fear them. That's not the topic for now. But if they tell you to desecrate Shabbos, you're going to say, your parents, look who your parents are. You have to respect them because they are your parents. Unless they abuse you, you still have to respect them. It doesn't mean that, you have to be, best buddies or whatever. But you can't embarrass them in public. Right? Regardless of what they've done, even if they're evil. You can't embarrass them in public. You still have to show a certain level of respect because they brought you into this world. Even so, if they tell you to desecrate Shabbos, Says the Talmud, you're not allowed to listen to them. Because even though you might say, well, the mitzvah of honoring parents should supersede Shabbos, meaning you listen to them and Shabbos goes out the window. No. Shabbos is pretty severe. Right? There are other things, maybe, that if a parent tells you to do something, whether you have an obligation to listen or not, it depends on what it is. But this is clear. They tell you to desecrate Shabbos, absolutely Torah obligation not to listen. Oh, this is anti-family. Yes, it is. And the Torah is also anti-pig. It's anti-camel. And it's anti-shark, if you want to eat shark. Or creepy, crawly things. True. But you say, I'm not making this up. Alright? This is what the Torah says. You know, this is the oral tradition we hold by. You know, so a parent cannot come along and say, you know, doesn't it say in the Ten Commandments you have to honor me? Yeah, but it also says I have to keep Shabbos. Keeping Shabbos is more important than honoring a parent. I mean, you know, you have to be respectful. Can't ram it down their throat. You say, you know, I'd love to do this, but the Torah says differently, you know, and I'm not allowed to. You know, then, you know, if your parents say, well, I think the Torah is this, and I think the Torah is that, okay, you can think what you want. This is what the Torah says. This is what I'm allowed to do. This is what the rabbis tell me I have to do. And I don't like the rabbis, I don't like what they say, and blah, blah, blah. No, if it doesn't fit into your world outlook, you don't like it. Why? You know, Shabbos candles you light, it's rabbinic. Hanukkah candles you light, it's rabbinic. You know, plenty of other rabbinical things you probably don't have issues with. But see, when it doesn't fit into your outlook, then you bring this up. Right? Haven't even read Hebrew, can't read Hebrew, never read the Bible from cover to cover, but you have the chutzpah to say, you have to honor me. You know, break Shabbos. You want to have a discussion? Want to see what commentaries say? No. Okay? So you say, I'll compromise. Are you allowed to compromise in this case? No. Most times, compromise is bad. Even if you protest. I knew somebody, sister got married, intermarried, right? Married a non-Jew. And he told me, I went to the wedding under protest. I disagreed with what they did, but I went to the wedding. So some people would applaud that. And say, wow, you know, he kept family peace. Where the Torah looks at it is you're giving testimony to something that's a travesty of a mockery of a sham. Intermarriage. What's destroying the Jewish people today? Intermarriage. Right? I can speak about it until I'm blue in the face. 80%, 70%. So you get 70% intermarriage, that's it. Most of the Jews are gone. We're going to agree that's bad. I'm not going to harp on that. But let me ask you, you know, the secular family, of course they're going to be whistling Dixie because you're there, if they know how to whistle Dixie. They'll be whistling Dixie because you came to the sacrilegious thing. That's ripping apart Judaism. But you say yourself, I went under protest. Woo! What did that do? Got your own kosher meal? Very nice. You're being witness to a catastrophe. A spiritual catastrophe. Could that make people uncomfortable if you weren't there? Yeah, it could. Could people be rip-roaring mad? Yeah, they could. Some may even have respect because you have principles. But let's say many throw the book at you and think you're a disgrace because you didn't go. Fine. My question is, do you believe in the Torah or not? And if you tell me you believe in the Torah and that God gave it, don't give me this wishy-washy stuff. If God gave the Torah, do you think that He made us unique and a person makes a blessing over the Torah, Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Amim, He chose us from all the nations. Someone who's intermarried, you think they can make that blessing? It's a blessing in vain. So if you believe in the Torah, and what it stands for, and what it is, how in the world can you go to such a thing? I compromised. My family would have been upset. Okay, so let them be upset. You need to have strength. And it's not easy. I'm making fun of it, but it's not easy. You have to have the strength to lay down the law, whether they make fun of you or not. Because it's brought down, better to look stupid in the eyes of man than to do things that God doesn't want you to do. So by you not going and standing your ground, you're doing what God wants, and you get tremendous merit for doing so. You get a lot of flack, I'm sure. Because they'll say you're a fanatic. It's only less than 10% of you, and we're the majority, and all this and all that. They can say whatever they want. They're going to disappear another generation. But you have to be strong in what you believe. Because when you give in and you compromise, it's a disaster. Doesn't make them look bad. It makes you look bad. It makes the Torah look bad. Because the Torah doesn't want you to budge. A person can be put in a bad situation. You have to ask, your local Orthodox rabbi what to do in such a situation. Right? But saying I'm going to go to an intermarriage out of protest is, you answer for yourself. Does that make sense? So you say, of course it makes sense. He's saving peace in the family. His family's being destroyed by intermarriage. What peace is he saving? People say, well, maybe he could bring back some of his family by being there. It'll be such a Kiddush Hashem. It'll be such a sanctification of God's name. Imagine the scene. I'll make it a little more graphic. I'm in that kind of mood. Right? Imagine the scene. They come down the aisle. You got Joe Rabbi on one side, Joe Priest on the other, or minister, or whatever. And you get both people joining. Alright. So let's say it's just a justice of the peace. Let's say it's someone who's neutral. Alright? That make it any better? It'll be less offensive to the Jews, probably. And seeing a priest there probably be kind of uncomfortable. People do it. People definitely do it. Do they feel uncomfortable? I'm sure they do. But, whatever it takes. Got to keep the family intact. So as my Rebbe here points out, compromise in general is bad. It's usually never good. And again, even if the other side may say, oh, it's so wonderful that you're here, and even though, they know that you disagree with it, you did it for the sake of the family. So I'll ask you the $1 million question. If it would be, which it won't, but if it would be, that a person being there, are they going to draw any Jews closer to Torah? Are they going to have so much respect that it's going to draw them closer? I'd probably venture to say no. It may make people feel better. They'll be happier. It didn't make a rift. But you see, at the end of the day, who am I living for? Am I living to make other people happy? Or am I living because the Torah is true and I have to do whatever I can to keep it? If it's anything short of that, then you'll just do whatever you want. You make a bigger compromise, a less compromise. But at the end, that's what you'll do. So in essence, you may have at some point made the family happy. It's not like a split. On the other hand, you probably desecrated God's name by being there, even under protest. So that being said, you know what desecration of God's name is? Right? So if a person desecrates God's name, he has to repent, has to do tshuva, he has to suffer in this world, he has to go through Yom Kippur, and he has to die. After all those four things have happened, then he can get atonement for desecration of God's name. That's pretty severe. So I would venture to say, I don't think this is a stretch. A person who would go to such a thing and even declare it's under protest, it's a desecration of God's name. Alright, something you may have to give up your life for to do. Probably not. Right, but it's pretty severe. People get put in bad situations. But in either case, whatever it is, we always have to ask ourselves the same question. Is this good for my soul? Is it going to draw me closer to God, or is it going to make me take steps backwards? Again, we have an evil inclination also. We may justify different things. This is not going to be a good thing for you and for everyone else. Why? Because they'll see, oh look, such a great thing, he compromised and he came for the sake of family. So many will say, that's what he should have done. Family comes first. Judaism says, as the Torah brings down, there's nothing more important than Torah. Torah cannot be compromised. If it does, it just gets belittled. It gets stamped on. And when a person does it, he's not making anyone coming closer to Judaism. Right? Someone can say that I'm wrong. Say it's not true, make a sanctification of God's name, blah, blah, blah. Show me somebody in that situation who's come closer to Torah because of it. You'll be lucky if you can count them on one hand. If that. I'm being very generous. Because I think the answer is a big goose egg. It's a big zero. I could be proven wrong. I don't think so. We have to think about what we do. If you're talking about somebody like Yehuda, and look what Yehuda did, and anyone who blesses him is considered disgusting in God's eyes because he compromised. So compromise in general, what's it going to do? At the very best, it makes other people feel more comfortable. Because there's less tension. But I'll leave you with the following idea. Let's say that's true. Family's intact, people are happy, okay. You had to make a compromise, you made your compromise, whatever it is. In God's eyes, I don't think he's going to be too happy. Because, someone will bring up, there's another thing. What about the sake of peace? Isn't peace worth something? Yeah, it is. If it can be done. If you have no other choice, if there's no other way, Okay? You do what you can, but you don't do what you can't do. You can't jump through hoops. If it can't be done, it can't be done. And then when that side is given over, you're a fanatic, you're this, you're that. Okay? So, sticks and stones. Let people say what they want. But at the end of the day, someone who holds fast to what the Torah is, they are going to have a continuation. People who don't will just fall by the wayside. I've seen it. They'll disappear. They'll have no, continuation. You might say, okay, it's not a big deal. This, that. Family peace is worth everything. It's worth a lot. I agree. If it can be done without turning the Torah into a pretzel. If it can't be done, there's no other way. Torah comes first. Always. May not be popular. May ruffle a few feathers. But who are we serving here? We're serving an absolute God who has absolute truth because he told us and he passed it down from Moshe to us throughout the generations. So he's the one calling the shots. And if he says, this is black and that's white, that's it. If there is maneuverable way, then okay. If there isn't, then what are you going to do? Family is still important. Stick it. It doesn't come over Torah. Nothing is more important. Adhering to what God wants and reaching our ability, that's what we're striving for. It's not about making people feel good. It's not about fantasy. It's not about make-believe. This is the real deal. You veer to the right, you veer to the left, you might as well disappear. Because that is what the statistics show. And it's only getting worse. So again, you can say, yeah, he jumps up and down, he screams, makes us feel bad. Think. Which way do I want my life to go? What do I want from my house? What do I want from my family? How do I juggle everything? It's not easy. But at the end of the day, as we say when we return the Torah, Eitz Chaimi L'Machzikim Ba. Right? Monday, Thursday, Shabbos, you return the Torah, you say the Torah's tree of life to those that grasp it. It's for you. It's protecting you. Because I grabbed onto it. I grabbed on with all my might to say this is what it is. Doesn't change. Not make-believe. Not fantasy. You want that? You shouldn't be watching these videos. Because when you veer off a little bit, then the Yetzer Hara grabs you. And then once the Yetzer Hara grabs you a little bit, that's it. He takes it for a mile. Takes it longer. Most people, God forbid I should say this, most Jews are going to disappear. When the Messiah comes, it should be speedily in our days. With everything going on, lack of education, intermarriage, these people spiritually will disappear. It's just, that's the way it is. So the question is, which train am I on? Am I on the train going right to assimilation? Leave a Hebrew name at the door? Use it 4 times in your life? When I'm born, when I'm bar mitzvahed, when I get married, and when I die? Have no connection to it whatsoever? Go to the right. You want to adhere to the Torah? Keep it. Do whatever it says to do. Send your kids to good Jewish schools. Be the best Jew you can be. Go to the left. But see, when you go to the left, and there's no guarantee what's going to be with our kids, but we do our best. You go to the left, you have a chance. You absolutely have a chance. You go to the right, it's game over. Don't pass go. Don't collect 200. You're finished. So I want to remind people, I give a class in Derech Hashem, the way of God, speaking about providence and how it works, every Tuesday night, 9 o'clock, New York time. I also give conversion classes, Noahide classes. Take a look at my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, or Beyond Noahides. Look at my blog, orthodoxconversion.com. If you want to contact me, you can contact me at rabbichaimkoffman@gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Everyone have a great Shabbos.